And we're back. We're live, and we're talking with Jake Fife of Fife Paranormal. How you doing, Jake?
I'm doing well. How are y'all doing?
Doing good. I see you got your camera working because the last time you were on with us, it was only audio.
Yeah, it only took me what, a year or so to get it fixed.
Yeah, no biggie.
Oh, I got around to it.
Oh shoot. So anyway, yeah, I'm still a little tired from my endeavors this last week. So anyway, Jake, what's new with you, man? What have you been up to since we last talked?
Well, since we last talked, I released my Ghost of Guilford Courthouse documentary. That was a lot of fun.
Cool.
Um, After that, I investigated the Nickerson Sneed House in Glade Springs, Virginia, with Miranda Young, the Ghost Biker, and I've released that as an investigation episode of the Five Files, and then she just recently released that as the season 4 premiere of her Ghost Biker exploration show.
Cool.
In between that, I've worked on some historical projects, some paranormal projects, photography projects. Checked out some cool places I hadn't got to go before. Just last week, I was at not last week, but the week before, I was at the Spirits of Brandy Station event in Brandy Station, Virginia, and that was fun
Cool.
because we got to dress up in 1860s garb and stuff, and they were using us as trigger objects, and that was a cool little weekend. I very much enjoyed that. And then for Halloween night, I was at St. Albans Sanatorium for their public investigation, and that got a little crazy. But yeah, I've just tried to stay busy doing this, that, and the other thing, and it's been a pretty good year so far.
Sounds good. Sounds like a lot of fun.
Hmm.
So, have you just been focusing more on the spirit part of it, or have you been doing any more of the cryptids? Since I remember last we talked, you were talking about Bigfoot.
I've been wanting to, I've been in contact with some teams and stuff that are doing Bigfoot stuff, but I just, stuff comes up whenever I've scheduled, meetups with other teams or going to
Mm-hmm.
interview people. It just seems, the first few times after stuff popped up and forced me to reschedule, I kind of took it as a sign that, I'm meant to focus on other things right now. So I've kind of put that on the back burner. But there was a
Okay.
big Bigfoot, rash of sightings. Some people recorded some really amazing audio, really creepy stuff near my hometown in West Virginia. And this was back, I think it's in May or June, but I was actually following that investigation, got in contact with some people that, recorded stuff and got to talk to them. So I didn't get to go out and investigate, but I was following that along and talking to the main players in that. So that's about as into the cryptid stuff as I've gotten, aside from more research.
Yeah, well, that's
Stuff
all
happens.
right. So, what do you got plans coming up now?
So right now, I still have to review some evidence from 2 weeks ago's event and then the Halloween night at St. Almond Sanatorium. I'm actually working on the script for a paranormal, kind of like a non-fic or actually a fictional documentary, which is gonna be a fun little project to do. And then I am looking for my next location for my, kind of like the year finale of a paranormal special. I don't know if it's gonna be like a full-on documentary or if it's just gonna be, like a 40-minute investigation piece. I haven't quite decided.
Cool.
Oh, sounds like you're really busy.
Yeah,
So,
I like to stay busy, it helps pass by the time and stuff. Since we last talked, I started working at the university's radio station, so
Oh, that's pretty cool.
that's been a lot of fun. I'm very thankful for that. I went into a job, they won't hire me. I'm not qualified. I haven't had a day in radio in my life, and these people all have 10, 12 years experience, and somehow I got a call back, and I've been there since August. It's been a blast.
so you're
That
normal DJ, or do you do the paranormal stuff like Art Bell?
I'm an announcer right now, so I do like ad breaks, weather reports, or quick stories, news and stuff. That's what they've got me doing right now.
So they got your
that's cool.
voice.
Yeah, it's a good start. I would love to do like an Art Bell coast to coast deal at some point.
Yeah, those would be fun. Something like that would be a blast to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy was a legend.
Hmm.
But you've been really busy. I mean, you worked with Miranda Young. That must have been something else, huh?
Oh, it was awesome. We had met at the 2019 Phantom Fest that was hosted in Virginia. Yeah, I think it was 2019. It was November, and that was the first time we had met. We had been talking, off and on, sharing ideas, experiences, and stuff. She's one of the most knowledgeable people I've ever met, not just in the paranormal, but in general.
Right.
And we've tried looking so many different times to try and investigate together, but schedules would conflict, something would pop up with her work or my work, and finally at the Nickerson Sneed house, we were able to, our schedules aligned, and it was awesome. It was great.
That's pretty cool.
It was. For instance, that's one of my favorite locations too to investigate, and she had never been there before. I think that was my 4th or 5th visit there.
Yeah.
So I knew the place like the back of my hand. So to kind of take her, hey, this is where this happened. This is and I already told her stories of stuff that had happened. So I was showing her. I was like, hey, remember when I told you? I was like, this is that, and it got active. It got really, really active and dark, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
I love those places.
Yeah, and it was crazy too because I got there at 5-something p.m. I was the first one to show up, and so I'm taking photos and stuff. She showed up a little bit later. We started our investigation around, I think it's like 7:30. We didn't stop our investigation till 8 in the morning.
Wow.
We just 12, 13 hours just consistently going out. We would have like a 20-30 minute break here and there, but we were consistently getting stuff that entire time. And in all my years in the paranormal, I've never seen a location like that before.
That is pretty cool. So when you met up with her, did you ask her anything about the jail that her and Dr. Sumner are involved in?
Oh yeah,
Yep. County Jail.
Yep, that was something before they got all the legal stuff, she was telling me, she's like, hey, they've got this cool place here, I'd love to own it, I'd love to do this with. I was like, it sounds like an awesome place. So when I heard that, they were opening it up, I was very happy for them. They're the absolute perfect people to have a haunted location. And I'm still trying to get out there. That's one thing I'd love to do in November before it starts snowing here in Virginia and Tennessee, but they've done an amazing job with it.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I'd love to actually go see that myself.
It's a cool place. The history is, and I've always wanted to investigate a jail. I've never investigated one before, so that just kind of seems like, if it's fitting that to be the first one.
Cool.
Yeah,
Joe.
I was watching what they did. That's it was amazing. And a lot of teams there since they've opened the doors, taking pictures like they did it right, I think.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you can go in there and it's like you're getting an old fashioned mugshot.
Yeah, which I think is really cool.
I think I thought that was really cool too. I see the pictures and stuff, and I thought that was something else. So do you still go out with your dad?
We do. He's been a little preoccupied with work and all of that stuff. But we have gone out a few times, investigated some cemeteries and stuff, and he's helped me on a few research projects that I've done. Earlier this year, I wrote, I think it's like 3 or 4 articles on Fife Paranormal, and he was a big help with that.
At least your dad's still kind of
started. It was like a father and son team, right?
Yeah, and it still is. It still is.
It's just he's
oh yeah,
become more busy.
Yeah. And it's usually a lot of my investigations that I do is I get off work at 5 and I quickly rush to a cemetery for like 20-30 minutes, or I've got one day off between my 2 jobs, and that's when I go out and do stuff, and it's a little busy.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry to hear that you have to work 2 jobs.
Doing it for fun. It for fun.
It's always nice to have some time whenever you can do things. So
you gotta enjoy what you do too.
Yeah. Like my job at the radio station, I love every second I'm there. I enjoy it.
Well, see, that's the whole thing. If you're actually happy with it and you enjoy it like that and you love it, it's not really a job.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in a lot of ways, it feels like a hobby I get paid for.
Well, there you go.
That's what it feels like.
and you can always work yourself into something else with that too, because
Yeah.
that gives you a foot in the door,
Mhm.
a nice little mark on your resume, and so you can maybe even move up and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what this could lead to. That's how I approach really any situation, any job, You
Hmm.
never know what it leads to.
Looks like we got a viewer from the UK today or
No,
tonight.
hello from the
Hey,
hello from
thanks for
the
tuning
UK.
in.
Yeah, thanks for
Watch
tuning in. Hi, Mohammed. So
what
yeah,
they have for you here. I'm going to share this. It's off your Facebook page.
Uh-oh.
Tell me more about that. Is there a story behind this, or
Oh,
was it
so
just
this is in Bristol. We were down there, Bristol, Virginia, not Tennessee. We were doing scouting for an undisclosed place, and when I was doing the research on Bristol, because I knew I like to plan our visits to show up in the town a few hours early because I like to explore the surrounding area. There's always cool places to see where you
right?
go,
Right.
and
That's
so I saw this place. And hey, Donnie, thanks for tuning in, but. This place, the Burger Bar, was the last place that Hank Williams Sr. ate at and was seen alive. And so when I heard that, I'm a huge Hank Williams Sr. fan. And so when I heard that, I told my dad, I said, we've got to go. Like, we're going. And it was cool. They had his pictures all over the place. They had his records hanging up. And it was really cool. The burgers were good. The atmosphere was awesome. It was quick, rapid pace. And, you could just imagine him sitting there, not knowing what was about to happen.
so. I don't know. Tell us what happened.
So after this place, I haven't read the story in a while, but after this place, they ended up going to actually my hometown of Princeton, West Virginia, Bluefield, West Virginia, switching off with a driver, and somewhere between Bluefield and heading up towards Beckley in West Virginia, which is north. He fell asleep, and so they switched the drivers in Bluefield. I've actually been to the place where it happened, and the driver noted that he was sleeping in the back, and they were like, we'll just let him rest. So they go up the road about 45 minutes, hour or so, and they notice, he's still asleep. So they're waking him up because they're about to make another stop, and he's not breathing. And that's when they discover that he was dead. And so they don't know exactly. There is a marker. I've been to it. It's near Beckley. And they say this is where he passed away. And I actually think it was, towards Bluefield where he passed.
So he just passed away in his sleep in the back of the car.
Yep.
Wow.
But the Burger Bar was supposedly the last place that he ate at was seen alive.
Wow.
I'd wonder.
And it's
about
got a
that
good burger.
I'd wonder if the food was bad and tainted.
It
No,
was
I'm kidding.
it was
I'm
good. Now I think it had closed down in the 60s or the 80s. And then it was reopened like 30, 40 years ago. So it's not like, the same line of people, but it's the same recipes, basically the same place. But the burgers were really good. They give you it's like a huge freaking burger. And
Wow.
the fries were good. And it's cool too because, it's like an old school diner place. Like the grill is right next to the bar and stuff.
Mhm.
Like they forgot my fries. And so they literally was like, hey, toss it up here. So we tossed the tray up there, got the spatula, flipped the fries up over the way, and then tossed it back to us. And that was cool.
Nice.
So you did some help with Spirit Guides Paranormal in making the restoration of the Fleetwood steeple happen.
Oh, I was so happy to hear that. Thank you so much, Donnie. I'm very thankful that you all let me be a part of that. The Fleetwood Church, I've always wanted to investigate a church. And, they allowed me to come in and help out with their events, allow me to be a guest and, just sharing the history and the experience of not just paranormal, but also, the camaraderie of the field. And it was a lot of fun. And, I'd love to see historical places, get treated right and get restored. And Spirit Guides Paranormal, if you haven't heard of them, highly recommend you check their stuff out. And historic Fleetwood Church, their Facebook page is amazing. There's a lot of cool history and stuff there. But they've been talking about this for a while, and it's an amazing location run by some amazing people.
Looks like a very old church.
Yeah, it
Oh yeah, I
does.
believe it dates back to 1881, and it's very active, very, very. It's got a cool
Well,
atmosphere in the evening too.
I think a lot of people don't realize churches are a good hotspot to go and do investigations in, because
Mm-hmm.
if you think about it, especially the older churches like that one that are from the 1800s,
Mm-hmm.
if you really think about it, you've got all this energy that's built up in there,
Right.
and it's part of the history of that building.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't think about going there because of the fact that it's a building that's religious, or holds, um, where they hold the meetings for
It's sacred ground.
stuff. Yeah, sacred rights. Thank you.
I keep
Yeah.
telling you why I can't go into one. You believe in spontaneous combustion.
For all y'all that has tuned in, and I'm not 100% myself tonight. This is my first day back from a trip to California where I did a team run with another guy. We went 3,000 miles pretty much in this run. It was a week long, and so I flew out to Cali and flew back, and I got back at like 9 o'clock last night. So I'm just kind of just a little out of it.
I got to give you props, though, Jake. That's a cool thing. I mean, when people do that, you're not only restoring something that's
Mhm.
cool, okay, for us to
Yeah.
investigate, and I'm saying us as in paranormal, the whole paranormal community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're preserving history. You know,
Right.
you're preserving history that most people would tear down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that's cool. I mean, I always thought that was cool. I mean, I'd like to get down to Florida because Christy Sumner, they helped move the Ma Barker house, and all of that was a part
Yeah.
of that big thing too. And I'd love to see that. That's one of those
Definitely.
places that's on my bucket list. That Scott County Jail that they did. That's preserving history.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And it's cool also because as you're preserving this stuff, you learn more about it, and you also
right.
learn stuff that other people might not have known. And I appreciate the props, but all the props should go to Christy, Donnie, and the rest of Spirit Guides. They're the ones that orchestrated all this. They just allow me to be a part of it. So props to them if y'all are still listening.
Well, I'm pretty sure they're still on and watching. So did you do an investigation of that church then before, uh, with them?
So the only times I've been there is for their events so far. I would love to do a
Okay.
private investigation of it, but even during the the public investigations, it's been really active. Which
Right.
typically if it's active during a public investigation, that's kind of a good telltale sign it's to be
It
active
is.
in a
It is a
private.
good telltale sign that your private investigations would be a lot more active.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Plus
and
you
plus even when stuff doesn't happen in places like this, it's still so cool to be there.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's because of the history of it.
Oh yeah.
I yeah. I love the older buildings though. Um because there are like two or three different types of activities that you can find, and some of them are connected with the land itself, depending on what has happened on the land. Kind of like
Yeah,
with
some
Gettysburg. Gettysburg is
yeah.
one of those where I think most everything that's there is because of what happened, and it's all connected to the land itself.
Yeah. And something real quick going back to the church that's really cool about it. Before the event happened, I did a big video about the Battle of Brandy Station, which
Hmm.
was the first battle in the Gettysburg campaign and was the largest cavalry engagement of not just the American Civil War, but in, American, history on
Hmm.
American soil. And part of the fighting actually took place where the church basically is. Some of the key maneuvers, the pincer movements and stuff. And so I didn't know that the first few times I went. So going this time, you just kind of stand back and just, imagine that day in 1863, hundreds and, thousands of horsemen just riding up over, and overtaking you. And it's just, it's almost too much, when you really get connected to a location, I can imagine what psychics feel because I'm not psychic or anything like that. And I sometimes feel overwhelmed in places like that.
Yeah. So was that church standing there whenever when
No.
Brandy Station? Okay, so
No.
So some of the activity that you're experiencing in that church could be from the battle itself. Then,
It could be potentially.
yeah, because I mean, that's one of the energies that I feel hangs out a lot, especially because it's more of a violent energy. It's more of violence has created that.
Right.
And then that's where you get a lot of your activity from as well.
Mhm.
And then the buildings themselves, whenever the buildings are put up and then things happen inside of them, then that's also another place where you can gain all that energy.
Thanks, Steve. You know, y'all find me on the steeple hanging off. Let me out of here. Let me out. That's
Oh my. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I am kind of out of it a little bit. So Joe's got to help me out here.
I have been helping you out.
Have you? No, it takes a lot of a person whenever you do what I have to do sometimes.
Foundation Civil War bullets have been found.
oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
Cool.
You know, talking about heck of a trigger object.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah.
The church
Oh,
dates
that's cool.
back 1880s. Previous foundation of the exact same size as Shea.
There's no sure sign of what type of building is there for sure, but we believe it was most likely a church there prior as well. May have been destroyed during the Civil War.
That's cool. Thanks for that,
That
Steve. I did
yeah,
not know
thanks.
that.
That is interesting.
I mean, you know, that just adds, you know, because I didn't know that. You know, that just makes me want to go back and find out, you know, what was here before. Because, you know, in the absence of, you know, archaeology and evidence, you know, you got to turn to the
Mhm.
spirits. You know, I've
Right.
done that at several locations and the spirits have come in clutch. And so, you know, I've got a new mystery on my hands.
And then Chrissy says that the
Culpeper
tax records, the Culpeper tax records,
places a building there
yeah,
in 1850.
in
That's cool.
1850.
That's cool. And see, that's what I'm talking about. It is so cool when you start working at places like this. You
Mhm.
spend a lot of time, you know, you do research like Donnie, Steve, and Christine, and the others have been doing, and you find all this cool stuff. And, you know, it paints a broader picture of the town and not just town, but also the region, you know,
Mhm.
and also the people that could have been there. You don't know, you know, a soldier could have had his life change. You know, a whole family line could have been altered at that place that is now forgotten.
Very true. Very true. You know, and another thing that with older buildings like that too is whenever renovations start happening,
Hmm.
like if they're trying to restore it and everything, that's another thing that causes, which is a trigger that causes a lot more of the of activities to start happening as well.
Yeah.
So you know, that's why I kind of think that if when you take an old historic building like that and you start doing work on it, it's always a good idea to start filming too, to
Yeah.
film it, to document it in that way, because you
Mhm.
might find all kinds of stuff. You know, you might have activity going on like crazy at that point.
Yeah, basically like a paranormal construction crew.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
Never know, anything's possible. I mean,
Exactly.
that's just it. You got to keep an open mind. You got to, you know. But the
Yeah.
research, I mean, sometimes that research for places I found can just be a dead end.
Mhm.
Um, because, you know, unfortunately, not everything was computerized or put on microfiche and stuff because that stuff wasn't invented until, you know, later. But when stuff gets dated back to the 1800s and you get a town that basically went up in flames,
Yeah.
you know, all those records end up destroyed.
Mhm.
So sometimes some towns just stay a mystery, I found.
Yeah.
There's one here in Wisconsin that's been baffling me for a while, and I'm still working on, but I'm running into dead ends every time I turn around.
Well, at that point, you just turn into spirits.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I did when I was doing my documentary earlier this year at Guilford Courthouse. You know, they've spent millions of dollars, you know, research groups, universities coming in there to look for that old courthouse. because it was gone by the 1790s. And no one knows where it is. I tried to get the spirits, to say something. I was not able to do it. It was kind of heartbreaking too, because I was so looking forward to that. I was looking at topography, historical maps and stuff. And I was like, I know where it is. I know where it is. And, I was like, spirits will help me. And, sometimes they help you, sometimes they don't. You got to be at the right place at the right time with this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Depends too if it's an intelligent hunt or a residual.
Exactly. Especially at a battlefield, you probably get a lot of residual stuff.
I would say that you get a ton of residual whenever it's battlefield areas, and for like the Civil War and stuff. I mean, Gettysburg, for instance, you've got reports of people seeing spirits just appearing out of nowhere, walking across the field and then disappearing, and it kind of being like on a video loop.
Yeah.
At that point, that's a residual energy that's being played back to you.
That's always fun though, when it's like, those people that don't believe and all of a sudden they see something and they take it home later and they're like, next thing you know, they're on the television program saying, my God, I didn't believe in this. We were just driving down the road next to Gettysburg, where the battlefield was, and we saw some guy walking over there in Civil War garb by the cannons.
Yeah. And, that was actually real fun. I didn't include it in the documentary because he didn't want to be on camera and stuff. But the second day of filming at Guilford Courthouse, my youngest brother, he's into filmmaking like I am. He went with me.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're walking through where the American second line was. I've got to give props to him because I'm walking around this battlefield. I've got, my notebook in one hand, and it's got literally like 10 to 20 pages of notes, handwritten notes about the battle and stuff. And I've got the book that I was basing a lot of stuff on in the other hand. I'm like flipping back and forth. I'm like, that lines up with this. I'm like, okay, that, makes sense. This is what I'm going to talk about. I'm just leading him I think we walked like 6 or 7 miles each day we filmed there.
Wow.
And, he's not into the paranormal at all. He was there strictly for the filmmaking, and then I was getting him food. And so we're sitting there, and I'm standing where the American second line was, which is also where I had some ancestors. And I'm looking, I'm like, this isn't right. This isn't right. He's like, what? I'm like, well, some intense action took place 40 yards that way, but that's dense woods and it's off the trails. We can't go there. And I was saying, he's like, why not? And I was like, you know what? I was like, that's kind of true. I was like, there's no signs. It's like, you know what? Let's do it. So we went hiking deep into the woods there. And, we couldn't see the trails. We couldn't hear the road. It was peaceful. It was so silent. And, I didn't want to leave that spot. So we're sitting there. I'm doing a spirit box session. And he's filming me. And I noticed him. He's like watching this, looking at the camera. And he'll go. And he just keeps looking. I'm like, what? He said, oh, there's reenactors over there. And I was like, what reenactors?
What?
I'm looking at him and I'm like, there's no one over there. And he's like, well, there's people dressed in blue over there. He said they were walking around looking at us. And I was like, there's no one over there. So I quickly pulled out the map I had. And I said, point exactly where they were. And it's weird because exactly what he said they were doing, they were coming from this direction, walking this way, is the exact spot where the Virginia reinforcements, which is where my ancestor was, they showed up out of nowhere from that same direction, marched up and helped out at the second line. Wow. And at that point, I'm like, that's too cool. I was like, he saw probably residual replay of, some stragglers coming up to help. And, for some reason, that was the coolest thing in the world because he's a skeptic, doesn't believe it. All of a sudden, he's helped me on a lot of the videos I post. He helps me out, but he's like, oh, it's not real. It's not explainable. But this is something he could not explain. Could not.
So did he get it on video?
No, because where he was, have like a top-down view of me, it was just out of frame.
Right. Oh,
and,
okay.
Because I went back, you can hear us react
to
it.
It was out of frame, but it was in his peripheral enough it kept catching his eye.
Yeah, well, the thing was, he's looking down because I'm sitting there and he's, up kind of down like this looking at it. And so he's, right up ahead. He's seeing it because he keeps looking up and down.
Yep.
And so, he was seeing it head on is what he told me. Because he was like, there are reenactors, like 3 or 4 of them. And I was like, there's no reenactors. I was like, there's no one. And he's like, well, they went behind the bushes. And I'm like, what bushes? I'm like, there's no bushes. And it was cool. It was cool.
So
he wouldn't admit to what it was the entire time, but
yeah. That's how a lot of skeptics can be.
Yeah.
It's hard with some skeptics. It's actually hard to get them to admit that they seen stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that area you're talking about was, you said there was an intense battle, as in gunfire type battle, right?
Yeah, about
Okay.
40 yards up, because I measured it exactly for specific reasons, is where most of the second line fighting, which was like, guys with muskets literally like
Mm-hmm.
20 yards from each other, hand to hand combat. There was a guy supposedly was decapitated and still haunts the
Wow.
place. And so where we were, my theory was, one, want to be away from the tourists because it was a
Mm-hmm.
warm day in early March, so there were a lot of people walking the trails and stuff. So I didn't want to bother them. Because
Right.
whenever I would do my historical bits, I told the parker, I said, "You all need to pay me," and they were like, "Why?" And I said, "When I'm here filming my historical bits, I have a crowd of like 10 to 20 people that gather around." And there were bits of the footage I had to go back and redo because, you can see like a crowd and it was cool, but we didn't want to disturb people and all that. So I was looking at the map. I was like, hey, if we go to this spot, this is where when the Virginians started running away, they
Mm-hmm.
were obviously, it was intense. They're
Okay.
obviously freaking out for their lives. So there's high energy, high emotion. And I read some reports that in this area behind the second line, Tarleton's legion of British dragoons actually outflanked the Virginians and came up behind them. They're just sitting there fighting. Next thing you know, losing an arm, losing a head. So, obviously that clash is going to create something. And that
Right.
happened right behind the line. So that's why I wanted to be there, because I saw that as, the pinnacle of this intense energy.
Yep.
And also it was by itself.
Yep. Yeah, I can see that. Well, one of the reasons I was doing the line of questioning there is because I was also wondering, what kind of vegetation, like trees, bushes, stuff like that, was in that area as well.
So I think I know what you're getting at. I didn't see any potential grave spots.
No, no. What kind of trees?
I
I'm
mean, there's
thinking. I'm thinking if the trees that are there are the same, like if it was like oaks or maples, trees that live a very, very long lifespan,
I see what you're getting
that
at.
maybe some of them caught bullets, fragments, and there
That
may
would
be
be
some embedded in there, which would also help with retaining the energy that was dispersed that day, or that was used up that day.
right. Unfortunately, the woods actually wasn't there during the battle. It's rather
Ah,
interesting. The
okay.
family, it was the Hoskins family, and they were living in Pennsylvania at the start of the war. And kind of like the McLean family in the Civil War, the war started. They were like, "Oh crap, this is happening too close to home. Let's move to North Carolina at a Quaker village where obviously the war is not going to meet them." And so they set up this little Quaker community there. They had their farm. There were like
Okay.
3 or 4 other farms, and then where the courthouse was, it was a courthouse, jail, tavern, and then some like storage buildings for stuff. So the area where the battle was fought, it's woods now, like dense woods.
Okay.
But during the day, it would have been, plowed fields and
Okay.
stuff. Yeah. It's just
Well,
after the battle, because there were so many, bodies, like the Americans didn't have time to bury their dead stuff. And reports I heard is that the British buried a lot of theirs where they fell. And there was
mhm.
a story, I forget the British commander's name. It wasn't O'Hara, it wasn't Leslie, but they were saying that for the next 3 nights that they were in the area, you could hear the sound of American soldiers and British soldiers dying on the field because, they wouldn't get them 2 or 3 days later because there were simply too many bodies.
Yeah.
And the community was overwhelmed. So after the battle, they got the cleanup, kind of like at Gettysburg. A lot of the people started moving out of the area. And, they
Wow.
wanted nothing to do with it. And of course, Greensboro started growing up and, people
Hmm.
started moving more that way. People were moving towards Charlotte, Wilmington, and the area kind of fell into disrepair. And that's one of the reasons the courthouse was lost.
Okay. Cool. But yeah, I was just kind of wondering because
That
I
was a
think
very
that,
good point.
well, yeah, I think that if we could actually find areas around some of the battles that happened during the Civil War where there was a lot of like wooded area,
Yeah.
um, because I'm sure that some of the battles that happened in wooded areas because the soldiers would definitely use a tree to use to try and keep from being shot. You know,
Yeah.
And if we could find places like that, I think we'd also have a lot of energy, because especially if the trees themselves caught some of the shrapnel and bullets, and they're the old trees like the oaks and the maples and the walnuts and stuff like that are still
Yeah.
standing, you know, that would be, I think that would be pretty interesting to actually go and find places like that and do some filming in there.
Some of that same stuff is in the ground too, right in those same areas.
Oh yeah, I mean, that whole
I mean,
area,
think
anytime
about it.
intense energy,
Like,
happens in an area, it
right.
all soaks it up. The ground, the
Oh yeah,
grass,
yeah.
Just like
trees.
Jake was saying, back in the Civil War, they were burying their dead pretty much on the spot.
Yeah.
You know, they're not always going to take everything off the dead either.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can look at some of these old shows when some of these guys are out there, you know, investigating like Gettysburg or some of those areas close by, or, you know, let's go back out to the Wild West when they were investigating, like looking for somebody's gold. They go out there with metal detectors, they're finding the old guns. Why not the
Yeah.
bullets and other shrapnel,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
That's a
And
really good point.
some people might not even know, that what shrapnel looks like from a musket gun
Right.
that they're
True.
looking for, you know? I mean, they're probably looking for bullets when you should be looking for lead balls.
Mm-hmm.
Donnie put up here wilderness battle with Jackson.
That's a really good area. I was thinking Wilderness Campaign, Chancellorsville. Those were the ones that came to my mind. And then, of course, Chancellorsville would be great because that was an intense battle. And of course, that's where Jackson, got shot in the arm and ended up passing away. I listened to a Civil War audiobook, and it was Abner Doubleday, who was a Union commander, and he was talking about Chancellorsville. And so that's one of my favorite battles to research. And, the stuff that they were describing, the nighttime conditions, the stuff that soldiers were talking about, feeling, sensing, hearing. I mean, it's disturbing stuff. And I wholeheartedly believe that even if the trees and stuff aren't still there, the ground had to have soaked all that up.
Oh yeah.
There's just simply too much happening in a concentrated area for there
Right.
not to be residual energy.
Just the blood alone from those people
Yeah.
soaking
Mm-hmm.
into the
The
ground.
bloodshed itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing what people can find if they do the research. And and it just the and then this planet itself. We're talking supernatural now. I am a staunch believer in the fact that everything on this planet has a spirit, has some sort of connection with
That makes sense.
everything else. That we are. I think I honestly believe sometimes that we are not individuals. We're a part of a whole, and everything is connected in some way, and that's possibly why we have all these different hauntings and these different energy events that happen like that.
Yeah.
So that's just me.
It's a good thought. I definitely think there's some smoke to that.
You never know. You never know.
That's part of the fun, right?
Too much.
Well, the Earth. I believe the Earth also has a spirit. The Gaia.
Mm-hmm.
The mother, the all mother, or whatever.
A lot of people talk about elementals. The Native Americans, they talk about the great spirits.
Yeah.
I definitely think those are things. I definitely know elementals are real.
Yeah, they are.
Know that,
They
unfortunately.
are.
I saw a pretty convincing.
Okay, hang on a second, Joe. All right, you just said unfortunately. What do you mean? I want to hear this now, Jake. You started this.
I've had some experiences with elemental entities that were not very good. I've had some that are good, and I've had some that were not so good. The scariest experience of my life, paranormal or life in general, was with an elemental entity at St. Albans Sanatorium. And that was when I came within about 3 feet of one. And just that experience, every time I think about it, I can feel the cannonball. I can see it in my mind, and just it's forever burned into my brain. And it happened 5 years ago. That was something. So I'm kind of leery about elementals, honestly.
So is this something you'd like to elaborate on?
Yeah, so this was after my very first visit to St. Almas Sanatorium with the Vibe Radio Network event. April 2nd, 2016 was the day of that event. And St. Almas
Okay.
Sanatorium, I'd always been, pumped to go because, being young and all that stuff, I couldn't investigate anywhere because all these locations require you to be 18. And so, I spent years, because I got into this when I was 10. So I was like, crap, I got 8 years, before I can actually step foot this place. So I'm doing research on this place, other place. That way, when my time comes, I already know, as much as I can about this. I'm prepared. So I was invited when I was 16 to go there as a part of this event. So, of course, I jumped all over that.
Oh,
And
hell yeah.
it was a heck of an investigation, very active. But I became obsessed with the place. And, it sounds crazy. I was hearing voices, like, you need to go to St. Albans, you need to go. And, and it was weird because I would hear female voices in my head, male voices. I'd be sitting there because I was in military school at the time, Fishburne Military. And I would be in class and I would just, I would hear these voices. And, I kept telling my dad, I've got to go back. I have to go back. And so May 13th, 2016, they were hosting an event, the Friday the 13th event. And I told my dad, I said, we're going. I said, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He was like, but you've got a military ceremony that day, end of year ceremony. I was like, I don't care. I said, I'm devoted to that. I said, but it's calling me. So we went back and it was a dark investigation. People were getting scratched and stuff. So to fast forward towards the end, we're in this area, Jacob's room, and it was dark. We were getting growls, grunts. Something was banging on the walls next. It was disturbing. So the guide comes rushing in, who I'm really close to. And he's like, hey, we've been looking for you. Where are you? And I was like, we've been here this whole time. You couldn't hear us? Because I'm a loud person. If you've investigated with me and seen my videos, I am a very loud individual. I'm like, you all couldn't hear me. They're like, no. I was like, well, where have you all been? They're like, we've been down here. So I literally round this half corner, and there's the whole group at the bottom of the stairs. And they couldn't hear us. We couldn't hear them. So the last thing I remembered was talking to him. And I was at the back end, of the area walking with him.
Mm-hmm.
And the next thing you know, it was my dad and I, we were in this other room, half a hallway over. And so we're hanging out there. And I just remember feeling this like oppressive feeling. And it was strange. And I had a camera and I was focusing on a newspaper article because I'm blind a little bit. Inverted vision, loads of fun. So I'm sitting there dealing with that, reading an article, and I caught something out of the corner of my eye. And so I turned real quick, and there's just, the only way to describe it is like a blobbish creature. And it glides into the doorway, does like this weird motion, and then goes out. So I lost control. And all of a sudden, I just started running towards it. And my dad's like, what? And I'm like, go get it. And, I'm running towards it, going through these hallways, pitch blackness, no flashlight, no nothing. All of a sudden, it stops in the hallway. And so I'm turning around, it turned around like a basketball pivot. And it's, at least 7 foot tall, something like that. It's just this weird blobbish thing. It was like it was trying to take a more precise form, but it couldn't. Right. And I remember looking into its eyes. And even though it's a solid black figure, I could still make out, eyes, a mouth. And it was weird because its mouth started like here to here, and it was just crooked. And I've never seen anything like that before or since. And inside its body, it looks like, black hole swirls. And there were probably at least 100 or so. And so, my dad runs in. He's like, Jake, back up very slowly. Because I'm literally 3 feet away from it. And it's just looking at me. And it didn't feel demonic or anything like that. I knew it wasn't that. But I just feel heat radiating off of it. And so it started gliding towards me. And so I'm backing up slowly, all that fun stuff. And we go into Evan Rafford's room again. And it's coming towards us. So we're using the spirit box, and we're getting crystal clear responses from this thing. And it was just this dark metallic voice, and it's not telling us its name, but it was saying stuff like, hurt, leave, get out, stuff like that. So it's weird, to fast forward a little bit, you can hear us on the voice recorder responding to whatever it's saying, but you can't hear its voice. Like, we'll ask a question, there's silence, and then we'll say, "Hey, did you hear that? Did it say that?" Its voice is not recorded. So, we finally,
Interesting.
yeah. So the voice record, because I started it once we got back into Evan Radford's room. At this point, it's saying
Right.
about 15 minutes. And, my dad and I, we start feeling just danger. And, my dad told me, he said, "Jake, we've got to get out of here. Something bad's about to happen." So we ended up just, going briskly walking. And we go down to the other group and all that stuff. We're like, "Hey, sorry we took so long. Everyone was wanting to hang out. Go back to the break room." And, we're thinking we've held people up for 15, almost 20 minutes when they're wanting to go take a break, use the bathroom, and get stuff. And the guy was like, "What do you mean? You've only been gone 2 minutes." And I was like, "No." So I showed them the voice recorder, and then they showed me a clock. And they're like, "You've been gone 2 minutes." And I was like, "Well, why does the voice recorder say 15? And I've never been able to explain that. Still to this day, I cannot. But every time I think about it, I just get, I get sick thinking about it. And so, it's just, I don't have any explanation for it. I've never experienced anything like that before or since. To my knowledge, at St. Albans, no one else has seen anything like that. There was one person, I forget her name, but she saw a smaller white version of that in the same hallway. But she said it acted very scared of them. But that was just, I still don't know how to
Right.
explain that to this day. So that's where my, leeriness of elementals comes from, because I'm convinced that's what that was.
Right. I'm wondering though, the way you're explaining that, and then how you've how you said that your voice recorder is showing 15 minutes, and the group's telling you were only gone for 2.
Yeah.
It sounds to me like a spirit that can possibly manipulate time.
We'll see. My dad, we're very logical people. Anytime something happens, we try to find an explanation for it. And, my dad was like, the only way we can explain the way it felt was, we weren't a part of this world anymore. That's what it felt like. It felt like we were in our own section of reality in the void, because we couldn't hear anyone. We couldn't pick up on any other energies. It was like mono, but we were on its turf. And, I don't like that feeling. I don't. Even thinking about it now, my hand's shaking a little bit. My stomach hurts. Just, stuff stays with you sometimes. That's something a lot of people don't know about this stuff is, it does stay with you.
Wow.
And which is funny because when I went back a few nights ago for Halloween, part of me was wanting to look for it, because I want answers. I'm the kind of person, if a person, if they claim such and such happens at a location, I want evidence. I want to experience it myself. And, if something happens to me, I want answers. I'm like, why did it show up to my dad and I? Why did it, mess with time? I want to know. And so when I went back this last time, I was really hoping that I could get something. And I could not get it. But it was weird too, because they still had the haunted house stuff, and I hate haunted houses.
You got some fucking spammer fuck that's sitting here fucking around with our channel. And
we do. I'm sorry, Jake.
Alternate channel. So I'm sorry, Jake. We're gonna have to end this because I'm not gonna keep up with this dude, and this is just rude as hell.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. We're being. It looks like they're trying to hack us, and they keep throwing this spam stuff up there. So
yeah, good times, and all the podcast shows I've done, this is the first time this has happened. So
yeah, that is so weird, man. I've never seen anybody do this to us before.
Remember, anything's possible. We'll be back tomorrow, hopefully, with Ben Stevenson. Unfortunately, we may not be broadcasting totally live.
Yeah, but if we're turning this off, thank you to everyone who tuned in. I really appreciate it. Hope y'all enjoyed the show. Not the chat, but the show, aside from the good part of the chat.
I don't know. The chat was good too.
It was, aside from the spam, but
yeah. It's just ridiculous. Yeah, I don't know how that's
that way.
It's just I know we never had that happen before.
Actually happened.
It's just my opinion is somebody that just don't have anything better to do in life.
Yeah,
Obviously not.
yeah.
Not
Karma
if they
gets people
got,
like that though.
not if they got 70 alternate IDs to spam somebody with.
Yeah, no, that's
You know.
stupid.
But anyway, Jake, it was great having you on.
Yes, thanks for popping
Yeah.
in again.
Thank y'all so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
You know,
Well, you're welcome.
we'll have to have you back.
Hopefully we can figure something out with this bullshit. But yeah,
Yeah. Maybe a pre-recorded show.
it
Might have to do it
might
that way.
have to.
Well, I don't know what.
I all right.
Everybody,
Yeah,
see you tomorrow night.
think-
That'll be our
think-
last Wednesday show.
yeah, because my schedule's kind of goofed up. And thanks for putting up with me today.
All right.